If it looks like a glitter bomb went off on my face, that's because it did. This makeup is a result of binge watching RuPaul's Drag Race, and I'm not sorry about it. Hello everyone, my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you guys my March mid-month wrap-up. I am kind of sorry that I am posting 2 wrap-ups in a row. I don't like to do that usually, but because I was out of town for so long, I am definitely playing catch up with all of the videos that I'm posting. So I have 8 books to talk about today, some books that I really loved, some books that I didn't like so much. So let's get into it. I think I'm gonna go from book that I liked the least to book that I liked the most. The first book I want to talk about is Let's Get Textual. This is by Tegan Hunter. So this is a romance that centers around a wrong number situation. I can't even tell you much about this story anymore because it was that forgettable. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It's a cute romance. 2 characters basically start texting each other back and forth because they each think that the other person is somebody different, essentially. And so that's how their relationship starts. Like I said, it was cute. There's also a baby goat involved. So if you love animals and you love baby goats, then maybe give this a try. I mean, I'm definitely not mad that I read this. It was just something to listen to while I was driving back from Joplin to home. But yeah, very forgettable. Nothing special, and after seeing reviews of the other books in the series, I really don't feel the need to continue on with it. I guess I'll talk about these 2 books at the same time because they are part of the same series. So I did read both Shatter Me and Unravel Me by Tahereh Mafi. Shatter Me is the first book in this series. Essentially, if you guys don't know what this is about, as I'm sure a lot of you do because this series has been out, like this first book was published back in 2011, so this series has been around for a while. But it is essentially a YA dystopian about this girl named Juliet whose touch is lethal. This is a dystopian, but it's a little interesting because it also incorporates characters who have superhuman abilities like Juliet. And in this book, there is this boy named Adam who she remembers from her past before being put into an asylum. And then there's this character Warner who is like a general in the Reestablishment. Reestablishment is essentially the government that took over once shit went down in this dystopian world. And so Warner essentially just wants to use Juliet and her abilities to keep the Reestablishment in control of the country. I gave this 3.5 stars. I'm gonna be real with you guys, this is not the most original dystopian story out there, and I didn't love any of the characters, to be quite honest, but I have to say, I really love Tahereh Mafi's writing style and something very unique about it. And the romance in this book and this series as a whole is just so intense and dramatic because of the way that Mafi writes it. It's honestly unlike anything I've ever read, so that's why I gave it the extra like 0.5 stars. But yeah, I mean, this first book isn't that great. And then I read Unravel Me, which is the second book in the series. I actually gave this 4 stars. I definitely thought it was an improvement from the first book. And I have to be honest, I still don't love any of the characters in this series except Kenji. I think he's pretty cool. But I have to say that the main characters are kind of annoying and there's just a lot of melodramatic things happening in these books. Juliet, she's kind of stupid. She definitely does some things that are just ridiculously dumb throughout this series so far. But at the same time, I am like flying through these books. I am looking forward to getting to Ignite Me and the rest of this series. And I'm definitely entertained by all the drama that goes on. I have a feeling if I would have read these books when I was in high school, I would have been absolute trash for this series, because some of the drama kind of gives me Twilight vibes. I don't really know how to explain that other than if you read Twilight, you know that that is also a very dramatic life or death romantic situation, you know, especially when the love triangle comes into play later on. But there's a lot of those kind of same vibes going on in this series, and I don't hate it, but I definitely would have appreciated it more when I was younger. I do think also that these books are a really great escape from the really awful things that are happening in real life right now. So again, if you want something to escape reality, check out this series. The next book I want to talk about is The Prince by Tiffany Reese. This is book 3 in her Original Sinners series. I have talked about this series quite a bit on my channel. channel because I read the first 2 books some months back and I really, really loved them. This is essentially a very dark BDSM erotica romance series, and it's just done so well. So first of all, if you are at all interested in that subject matter, I would definitely recommend checking out the first book, which is called The Siren. But just to give you a basic plot synopsis, this whole series essentially centers around Nora Sutherland, who is a very famous erotica author, and her various relationships with a lot of different people in her life, essentially. There is Surin, who is a priest that she has been in an on and off again relationship with, like, for 18 years at this point. She has various other friends in this BDSM community, such as Kingsley, Griffin, Michael, and then there's this guy, Wesley. They became really close because Nora was teaching a writing class, I believe, at the university that Wesley was studying at, and so he ended up moving in with her and kind of becoming her writing assistant. So in this book specifically, we are centering on Surin and Kingsley, because they actually have quite the past together. Specifically, they went to a Catholic boarding school together, and so this book delves into their romantic relationship when they were teenagers. And then on the other side of the story, we're also centering on Wesley and Nora, who have now entered into a romantic relationship. This series is definitely starting to become pretty suspenseful because throughout this entire book specifically, there is a mystery going on. There is definitely someone who is out to get Nora, and that's why Surin kind of sends her away with Wesley. And I have to say, this was another phenomenal installment to this series. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I didn't love it quite as much as book 2, but I still really enjoyed it. I'm just in awe of how well written these books are. You can tell that Tiffany Reese does really detailed outlines before she writes down a word of it. And like I said, there was a really compelling mystery going on that I'm really looking forward to seeing what the outcome of it is. Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking about this book because I could gush about this series forever, but I just highly recommend it if you are at all interested in this kind of subject matter, or if you are interested in delving into darker erotic romances in general. Next book I want to discuss is The Worst Best Man by Mia Sosa. This is actually an arc that I got off of NetGalley, so thank you so much to NetGalley. I'm always really appreciative of the e-arcs that they send to me. This book has already been published actually, so once again I got to this arc kind of late, but this is essentially a contemporary romance, kind of a soap opera story. So we have Lena, and at the very beginning of the book she was supposed to get married to this guy, Andrew, I believe is his name. Andrew ends up leaving Lena at the altar, seemingly because of something that his younger brother Max told him to persuade him out of getting married. So she's understandably very upset with Andrew for walking out on her, but she's also very upset at Max for being the one to convince Andrew to do that in the first place. So now it's a few years in the future. Lena is now a wedding planner, and Max and Andrew both come back into Lena's life. Basically, it's like a work-related thing. And so Max and Lena specifically have to work together on a work project. And so as you can tell, what ensues is an enemies to lovers romance between Lena and Max. So that's why I'm saying that it's a soap opera, because she ends up, you know, being with her ex-fiance's brother, which is weird. I thought this was a very solid contemporary romance. I gave this 4 stars. I wouldn't necessarily call this a rom-com, even though it's been kind of marketed as one, and the cover also leads you to think that it would be. But to me, it's much more of a serious book. I mean, there are lighter moments here and there. I really enjoyed both Lena and Max's characters, and I especially really appreciated the incorporation of Lena's Brazilian heritage. We got a lot of background from her own family and just different parts of her culture. You know, I definitely learned a lot about the Brazilian heritage, and I just thought that it added so much to the story. Also, Max is such a sweetheart. I loved how he just really respected Lena, both in a professional way, but also in a personal way. And I did really enjoy their relationship, but at the same time, nothing about this book truly blew me away, if I'm being honest. But it was just a really solid contemporary romance, so I do recommend giving it a chance if this plot appeals to you in any way. The next book that I want to discuss is All-American Muslim Girl. This is by Nadine Jolie Courtney, and I really enjoyed this one as well. I am giving this 4 stars. I think I'm gonna go ahead and read a little bit of the blurb straight off of Goodreads, because For some reason, this plot is kind of complicated for me to explain myself. So it says, Allie Abraham has it all going for her. She's a straight-A student with good friends and a close-knit family, and she's dating cute, popular, and sweet Wells Henderson. One problem, Wells's father is Jack Henderson, America's most famous conservative shock jock, and Allie hasn't told Wells that her family is Muslim. It's not like Allie's religion is a secret exactly, it's just that her parents don't practice and raised her to keep her Islamic heritage to herself. That is the basic premise of this. I have to say that I really enjoyed the characters and the story overall, and I learned so much about the Muslim faith, so if for nothing else, I really do appreciate this book for how much it educated me. I will say that I never felt like I could fully emotionally connect to Allie, and that's mainly because this book doesn't show a lot of her individual personality other than her passion for things outside of herself, like her Muslim faith and her relationship with Wells and her friends and family. And also, I didn't really love the romance in this, if I'm gonna be honest. Wells to me was just a basic nice white guy. There wasn't anything to me that really stood out about his character. So I do think that the overall aspect of the character development definitely needed some work with this book. At the same time, I did really appreciate how much this discussed the Muslim faith and different issues that are going on in our country today. So I definitely really look forward to reading more books in the YA genre that are about Muslim characters. And last but not least, I want to talk about 2 of my 5-star reads. So the first one is Kiss the Girl by Tara Civic. This is the 3rd and final book in her Naughty Princess Club series. As you can tell from the title and the cover, this one is telling Ariel's story, and I have to say this was yet another iconic installment to this series. I'm just so glad that we finally got Ariel's story. It was just such a fun time. I also really loved the epilogue to this book because it just perfectly encapsulated all of the happily ever afters, you know, from Cindy's story to Isabel's story and now to Ariel's, and it was just the perfect way to end this series. I do want to make a note that there are several moments throughout not just this book but the other 2 books in this series as well that are quite ridiculous, but that is Tara Civic's writing style, and I think as long as you go into this knowing that it's going to be a zany time, I think you will enjoy it. And I also just think that Tara Civic's writing style works so well for these specific characters and their stories. This was just so good, and I cannot recommend it highly enough if you are just looking for a really fun romance series. And the very last book I want to talk about is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I was really looking forward to finally getting to this book after seeing a video from my friend Jessie. I will link her booktube channel up in the cards above. She is a fellow booktuber and I really love her content, and this was her absolute favorite book of 2019, so I knew that I had to give it a chance. So this is essentially about Kala, and when she was a baby, she was living in this remote town of Alaska with her mom and dad, but her mom and dad ended up splitting up, and so her mom took Kala with her, and I think they ended up settling in Toronto. And now we're in present day. I think Kala is 26 at this point, and she gets a call from Alaska that her father, Ren, has lung cancer, and apparently it is really bad and his days are numbered, and so she decides to fly out to Alaska to be with her father and to try to create an actual relationship with him, because, you know, they've lived like thousands of miles away, you know, her whole life, and she's really only talked to him on the phone a few times here and there throughout the years. This book ends up being about her making amends with her father, as well as a romance with this guy Jonah, who is a pilot that works with Ren, because essentially Ren owns like this small charter airplane company and Jonah is one of his pilots. Kind of an enemies to lovers situation. Jonah like hates Kala's guts from like the second he meets her. The romance was definitely not my favorite part of this book. The reason why I gave this 5 stars was because of the relationship between Kala and her father. There were just a lot of things about this book that hit really close to home for me personally, so I really felt like I related to Kala so much. And so with the romance, Jonah is quite the asshole. There are several things that he does through this book that just made my blood boil. For instance, he told her multiple times that she looks better without makeup, which I'm not even gonna open that can of worms, but I just hate when people say things like that. Also, he stole her freaking luggage and like held it hostage from her because he thought that she was too high maintenance. Like, there's just so many things that happen in this book that I don't agree with. But at the same time, I did end up enjoying their romance. It just was not my favorite part of it. I do highly, highly recommend this if you are looking for an emotional kind of women's fiction / romance story. I cried numerous times while reading this. This book definitely wrecked me. And that's going to be it for my March mid-month wrap-up, you guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you would consider pressing that like button and subscribing, and I would thank you in advance if you do. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!